Welcome back to Plain Speak, where we pick the brains of industry experts for a quick 30-minute chat on the intersection of technology and customer support. So as we are well into Q4 now, the epicenter of DTC brands' business calendars, we're really excited to have TJ Stein, the head of CX at Everlane, where we're going to discuss seamless support during the holiday season, as well as how Everlane is marrying fashion with CX technology. TJ, super excited to have you on with us today. I think you're going to be the perfect guest to enlighten us about crafting an unparalleled customer experience, even during retail's most intense holiday season. Everlane's been a name that's synonymous with transparent pricing, sustainable sourcing, and leading customer experiences. Before Everlane, TJ spent 15 plus years building high growth consumer brands such as MeUndies, as well as tech SaaS-based firms like Media Temple and MailChimp. With his unique blend of experiences from both tech and D2C, he recently took the helm of Everlane's CX, marrying both tech and style and e-commerce seamlessly. So for anyone joining us for the first time at Plain Speak, my name is Liz. I'm the CEO and founder of High Operator. We are the leading customer support solution that scales dynamically based on a company's evolving needs. And our proprietary customer support engine, HiQ, leverages generative AI to tackle anything from simple to really complex customer requests. We also just launched an auto tagging tool, Highlight, so any company can become automation ready with clean and properly tagged data. We're excited to be here today. As a very quick housekeeping note, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them into the chat below wherever you're watching this. If we don't get to them during the session, we will reach out or post answers on LinkedIn afterwards. So TJ, hi, welcome to Plain Speak. Thank you for joining us in Q4. Given your diverse background, tell us a little bit more about that if you'd like. What sets apart the customer experience at Everlane from the other awesome, incredible brands that you've, helped build and been associated with?
Yeah, no, of course. Great question. Liz, thank you so much for having me today. I'm thrilled to participate. Specific to your question, I think Everlane from a brand perspective shares, I would say a pretty open and genuine commitment to transparency and sustainability. That vision has been really consistent from day one. It's really in the fabric and DNA of our company. You see it in our website, you go into our retail stores, our marketing and creative, social media, it's everywhere. So I think in many ways, Everlane's sort of been at the forefront of this movement and hasn't really deviated far from that path. Specific to CX, I think what maybe sets us apart is that we try to weave that vision into the customer journey, and we tend to focus on long-term outcomes, right? So maybe I'll unpack that. A lot of brands probably focus on acquiring customers at the lowest possible price and thinking about how do we get as many as we possibly can, right? So
Yeah.
Everlane, we try to think about the longevity of customers. What keeps them coming back? What experiences lead to the highest possible loyalty? So we try not to over-index on vanity metrics and instead think about loyalty, right? So I think that's maybe where we sort of get a little bit differentiated there. And so I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about Net Promoter Score and its efficacy. I think we can probably save that for a whole other time. But in my personal experience, working with both, direct consumer, tech and SaaS brands, NPS has been kind of a heartbeat metric for brand loyalty. So again, I think that's something that sort of differentiates us. And then one small note, in terms of, attributes that maybe set us apart. Everlane's CX function serves as a really important role in the company as the voice of the customer, right? So we're not, a function that just simply responds to emails. We do that too. But we're definitely kind of a broad and cross-functional, team. We have team members that sort of are liaisons between marketing, engineering, product, and data. We obviously share a lot of product feedback with product design teams. And I think what this does is place a really important emphasis on the big and the small, the tiniest checkout issue to like the global supply chain issues, right? So we've got to be zeroed in on what's happening, big and small.
I love that. There is a lot to unpack in that statement, right? So I love how let's try to take it bit by bit, because it sounds
Yeah.
so easy when you're just like, yeah, we believe in transparency and sustainability. We weave that through from the messaging to the experience. But let's maybe double click a little bit on that, right? You
Yeah.
started by saying, Everlane over its 11 years has been really consistent with its commitment to transparency and sustainability. I think those of us who have maybe shopped at Everlane and seen the customer-facing messaging really understand and experience that. Can you maybe give us some maybe specific examples of how you take that and then you weave it all the way across the experience, right? Not just what the customer encounters, but through to the whole, customer experience and support backend.
Yeah, I'll start by saying it's not easy. So I know I gave maybe a longish answer there, but I don't actually envy CX leaders right now. There's a lot of brands sort of tightening budgets and asking CX teams to do more with less and all that kind of stuff. So I wish I had a playbook that I would share with everybody. But I think one example that I can share in terms of transparency is how we engage with high value customers, right? So we typically like to tap into rich customer profile information to offer sort of like an elevated service experience for top customers. Prior to this sort of program, it was everybody receives equal treatment, first in, first out. Doesn't matter if it's your first or 50th purchase. And so what it allows us to do is there's, situations where we need to extend and go beyond our normal scope of support and our policies. And we try to be really upfront about what those are and what that means. So that's maybe one on the CX side. And one of the, components that I think, when people refer to transparency is even pricing, right? So you go to our website and a lot of our product pages have kind of a cost of goods and margin breakdown where, a lot of direct consumer brands, just sort of bake in the markup and that's the price that you pay. But we'd like to get a little bit more specific and more nuanced. So that's probably been one of the more like obvious places that you see that transparency in terms of the customer facing experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember when Everlane first started posting those breakdowns of materials, like things like transit, right, transport, and all of that. It was really, really, I think, eye-opening from a consumer experience as well. So something in there, you said something that was really interesting, right? This idea of, really segmenting out sort of high-value customers and, providing them a differentiated experience. Now, that's kind of the dream, right? The ability to sort of meet every single customer with a customized experience based on their needs, their profile, their history. Easier said than done, perhaps. I know this is going, to double click a little bit here. Were there specific ways you mentioned, bringing in more contextual, rich customer data? What are some specific ways that you and your team used to surface that a little bit better?
Yeah,
You've got
certainly.
1,000 customers waiting for replies.
Yeah, I'll get a little tactical here. So we use a software platform called Customer with a K.
Mhm.
Customer's been really good for us in the perspective that we've integrated really closely with our order management system. So you can see all of our order history inside Customer. You can see, tracking information, returns, and all the normal sort of stuff you might expect with e-commerce. We also pull in, as I mentioned earlier, kind of customer profile information. And so we can see what sort of categories that a customer might purchase within. We can see products that they have high satisfaction scores with and maybe lower satisfaction scores with. And then their lifetime, right? How long have they been a customer with us? What's their purchase history look like? And so basically what customer allows us to do is take these different inputs, right? And for every business, it's going to be different, right? So for Everlane, it's maybe a little bit more straightforward, but we basically build almost like a rubric of how we sort of think about this customer in the context of their importance to our brand, right? And we do emphasize folks that have been shopping with us for a long time. So we tend to recognize that, right? So when you engage with us, say in just a chat, for instance, we'll say, Liz, thank you so much for being with us. I see you joined us in 2014, right? You've been with us for 10 years. And I think just, very small, again, tactical example of how a moment of recognition can lead to that, greater loyalty, right? People love that, being recognized and feeling heard. And so, again, one tactical example, but I think that's something that we try to emphasize in, hundreds and thousands of conversations every week.
Absolutely, especially at a time of year where every Instagram ad is competing, right, for those consumer dollars, kind of draws us back to what you said at the very beginning, which is really Everlane's focus on long-term customer value,
Yeah.
right? What I find is really interesting is that, when you think about sort of the support space, right? There used to be, you had customer support teams. And then, that sounded a little transactional. So then we had customer experience teams, which maybe weren't necessarily doing anything that different. But now I feel like in the last couple of years, we've really started to see sort of a unification of support and marketing in the entire experience, right? From purchase over the lifetime of a customer to really start to make CX departments truly customer experience in the way that I think we've been labeling it and giving it the terminology for a while. Fascinating. So when you talk about, Everlane's commitment to sort of balancing growth, but at the same time being a business and being a bottom line, right? How do you sort of pull that off internally? How do you really sort of bring those metrics home of, hey, we as a team, we are trying to move NPS, and these are the resources we might need. This is what we might need to do, especially in a time where you mentioned, CX teams often do have tighter budgets. How are you building that support across your team as well as across your org?
Yeah, I was talking to some colleagues about this recently. I think there are a couple of unique ways that CX teams can sort of position themselves internally with their teams to have that sort of broader level of impact. And so, I think the first thing is sort of aiming for business value. And similar to my answer before, it's going to look a little bit different depending on if you're a subscription business or a direct consumer brand. Regardless, whatever the higher overarching goal is for the organization and all the levers and inputs that go into that goal, it's important for CX leaders to sort of understand what those things are, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of private businesses went into a period of austerity over the past couple of years. So profitability was really important. Whereas like 5 years ago, it was all about growth, right? So
Yep.
it's important for CX leaders to have an understanding of what's important relative to like the business climate. So whatever CX teams can do to sort of meet the moment for where the business is, right? Whatever the objective is, try to ladder up your team and CX objectives around those, business objectives. I think the other thing that I would advise is that in order for, especially folks who are just sort of like growing in the ranks of their CX leadership, is understanding the like sort of business currency of your peers. So, for example, we work in apparel, right? So I need to understand the dynamics of our e-commerce team, right? What do they care about?
Yep.
Conversion rates, average order values, those sort of things. Whereas if I talk to my partner on the logistics team, it's all about SLAs, right? We got to get these orders out more quickly. We got to make sure that customers are getting their orders on time. Finance has different goals, right? Marketing and brand teams have different goals. So, I think it's important for CX leaders to understand the currencies that the other team members are dealing with, and maybe more importantly, understand how their daily interactions with customers, the data that they're receiving from customers, can influence those teams. And they do. I think the challenge for a lot of CX leaders is creating those through lines so you can better story tell. I think we get wrapped up in CRMs because you get all these pretty dashboards and trends and lines and everything that tell you how you're performing. But it doesn't actually tell you how it impacts other teams, how it impacts other, the broader business. So, leadership's the challenge, right? You've got to be able to
Yeah.
storytell and maybe self-market a little bit. So I think those are definitely two kind of key elements that I would highlight and share with anybody that's, trying to be really impactful in their roles.
Absolutely. Because with CX leaders, impact really flows to two directions, right? Which I think you sort of hinted at a little bit here. There is, your team all the way down to frontline. How are you empowering them? Because they are the closest, right? They get all the qualitative data, right, about what's going on the floor. But then when you sort of look up and horizontally across the org, it's, I think you said, my counterpart in logistics, my counterpart in e-commerce, what's their business currency? Right? What's their path to success? For maybe a leader that's really starting to grow that team and starting to think, okay, I can answer emails every day. We're on top of our SLAs. How do I expand? What are some thoughts, strategies, frameworks for how to bridge that gap between the qualitative data that's easy for you to bubble up and the quantitative data that maybe your peers and managers might care about?
Yeah, it's a good point. We have pretty routine discussions around how to, I guess, weight customer feedback. And so just to give you an example, we may see trends sometimes in return data. So maybe there's a particular product that we're hearing specific customer feedback about. That may come in waves, right? So maybe one day we see, some a spike of qualitative data, but when you actually zoom out, you might see that the return rates for that product are quite low. They're not as significant, maybe as some other products that we desire. So I think we have to be pretty methodical about how we approach that qualitative feedback, because we don't want to place undue urgency in an area of the business that maybe doesn't need it or doesn't require it. So I think it takes some practice to develop that sort of data muscle around understanding like the true drivers of like sentiment and loyalty. As I mentioned earlier, we use Net Promoter Score. So the platform we use is Delighted. So Delighted's going to send out Net Promoter Score surveys. And for those who may not know, Net Promoter Scores, 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Everlane to a friend, family member, or colleague? So we like to slice and dice that data by, the product you purchase, if you're a new or returning purchaser, the category that you purchase within. And from there, we start to look at qualitative, like the comments that customers are leaving, positive and negative, of course. And I think, the challenge, and again, I think all businesses still sort of contend with this, and I don't think Everlane has quite figured this out, but how do we take that feedback and then use it to help shape our priorities and our objectives? And so we have different, prioritization frameworks at Everlane, and other companies have obviously unique experiences there too. But I think that's the key pieces I would highlight, is that, you have an opportunity to obviously use data to influence your roadmaps and priorities. But one thing I will share is that there's something very true and unique about hearing a customer's voice. So earlier this year, we shared a voice of the customer deck with many members of our team. And we actually included customer interviews. So we had customers, go through our website, make purchases, go through the returns process.
Oh, wow.
And we shared the videos that they gave to us in reply. And there's something very impactful when you hear a customer's voice and they're frustrated. And when that's a product that you worked on or built, or part of the website that you thought was maybe more intuitive than it really is, when someone hears that voice of frustration, I think it creates like a deeper resonance with folks that maybe like a chart or a graph just don't tell.
Yeah.
So customer interviews have been a really kind of important part for us to like really drive a point home where, again, like that spreadsheet might not suffice.
Absolutely. That is such a good way to look at it, because you have to zoom out to sort of know where to focus your effort, right? But then it sounds like you're then layering on the qualitative, hearing the voice of a frustrated customer to really help drive home the impact, right? To really get both in.
Yeah.
Wow. But really, all that comes down to your ability to not just because the customer support, like answering emails gets you a lot of things. That's your direct touch point to the customer. But to really drive changes in overall customer experience, you really have to recruit, right? Sort of cross-functionally across all the different departments to really drive those initiatives home. Right. I really love how you've really pulled out NPS, right, which is a holistic metric, as the North Star there versus, something like customer satisfaction, which alone means that great, the support team is doing awesome. But, what would you do with a high CSAT, low NPS, right?
Yeah. Let's take a subscription business, for instance. You might have incredibly fast response times. You might have the friendliest service,
Mhm.
but maybe that subscription business is churning a lot of customers. Maybe it's a payment issue.
Yep.
Maybe it's a plan type of issue where customers aren't finding the right plan. So they bounce and maybe find a competitor. Our jobs are actually to share that information, right? So
Yeah.
when I say vanity metrics, like your first reply time, obviously very important, right? I'm not
Yep.
gonna dismiss that, but what customers are actually saying is they're frustrated, right? And I think that's the key sort of element of the service model that CX leaders need to give back, right? I'm a cheerleader, right? I have to go advocate for my customers to all of my partners. And ultimately, if I want to be successful, I need to influence my peers, my stakeholders to enact change, right? And so that's a big component, right? We can't just again share the spreadsheet and hope it gets better. You
Yep.
really have to influence your team members.
Absolutely. And I think that'll be to some extent the theme of 2024, because you're right. We had this period of low interest rates, venture funding boom, right? Where growth, top line, that was the metric that mattered. Compare that with the sudden austerity, as you put it, of the last maybe 12, 18 months, where it was no, cut, bottom line, where is that? And now it seems like the focus really is going to be okay, but it's not just saving money, it's not just growth. What is that metric for your business that matters, right? Is it sustainable
Yeah.
growth? Is it subscription retention? Whatever that is. And that is, I think, a much harder cross-functional metric to manage than just marketing growth top line, finance cutting the bottom line, right?
Yep.
I think that's really going to put a spotlight on what CX teams have to do over the next 12 months to make it happen.
Yep.
Now,
Absolutely.
yeah, let's take that and let's put that in the context of generative AI having its heyday,
Yep.
right? So, as you think about, elevating customer experience, all the goals, all the different tools, how do you pull that off? How do sort of AI and other technological tools maybe play a part in your journey today, and over the next 12 months?
Yeah, it's been kind of dizzying to be in this space because, there's just a lot of, information being thrown at support leaders on how XYZ tool can drive efficiencies, right? And so, as for AI tools, I think there's sort of two buckets. And I think about the landscape of these tools for CX teams. One is, how do you elevate your workforce, right? Primarily your agents, maybe some managers and supervisors, things like that. And then the other side is elevating your customer. So the workforce tools have a really clear ROI, right? We're going to say we make you faster, we make you more efficient, we make you more productive. And then the customer tools, the most obvious being, say, like a chat bot, where it's emphasizing self-service to create low effort solutions, right? I want to automate my
Yep.
returns experience while maintaining brand voice, right? So Everlane relies upon both, right? I'll start on the agent side. As I mentioned earlier, we use customer. And I think we were probably one of the first brands in their beta program for some of these AI capabilities to use, I think it's called Agent Copilot. And there's sort of like a suite of features under this Copilot umbrella. But the essence is these tools make agents go faster, right? There's conversation summarization that,
Yep.
and there's another feature that takes kind of a fragment of an idea and transforms that fragment into like a complete, like customer friendly idea. And then of course there's like the, souped up grammar and spelling checks too. So agents still need to review, the replies and make sure the brand voice is consistent, all these things. But the technology is really impressive. We're seeing gains in average handle times already and doing these things. So we're excited by the impact those are having. And then one recent feature we've recently tapped into is AI responses inside of our like conversational assistant. So basically we're analyzing customer intent inside the chat experience. And then, using this feature basically to offer up, content suggestions specific to the intent for that customer. So, the responses are derived from like help center content. So there's no risk of like your bot or AI like hallucinating and providing like wildly incorrect information. So, we've had pretty good success with that so far. I think it's going to be on us to put these in more workflows and add these in more places. But we've been really impressed so far.
That's really exciting. Sounds like you're saying, your agents and your team, they're the soul of the actual interaction, but there's this sort of magic wand that they can wave to create great replies from intents and fragments and sort of package everything all together a little bit better.
Yep.
Super exciting. So maybe lastly, we've talked a lot here about, transforming, customer experience teams in general, but especially at Everlane, the CX team from being seen as just, hey, we're support, respond to emails, to being really a pivotal stakeholder and partner to other departments and key business decisions. When you think about maybe more broadly the future of CX at Everlane and other consumer orgs, what does the future of CX look like?
Yeah, I would say probably over the next few years, and maybe this is like a selfish desire, so I'm not good at predictions, but I hope that CX teams become more of a confluence of CX and customer insights. As I mentioned earlier, I think that customer insight about what customers are truly saying, what's influencing their purchase decisions, their retention decisions, can be attributed to the team that's closest to the customer. And that's often your support and your CX teams. So I think this marriage of customer insights and CX allows CX teams to better understand sentiment, predict, future outcomes like churn, like another purchase, a renewal, and ultimately kind of influence the longevity of that customer, right? So I think, a lot of support leaders are looking for that opportunity to take their team to, from cost center to revenue center. And I think that's one sort of like maybe obvious way that I would hope that becomes more common over the next few years.
It's exciting, the future of data and really marrying that experience across CX. No, that's exciting. I hope your future becomes the future, TJ.
Me too.
Last couple of points here as we get towards the end of our lunch 30 minutes here. Every week, TJ, we do a rolling question. Yours is coming from Emilio Morales Paredes, customer service expert who is at the dating app Field. And he's kind of curious to know, what are the automated AI services that you can't live without in your personal and professional life? What have you used recently that was really good?
Yeah, so I'm on a personal level. I maybe don't use automation and AI as frequently as I should, but I actually did use ChatGPT to help write a really important letter to my kiddo's school board, basically opposing a zoning change. And I think that I wanted to kind of come from a place of, deep rational thought and not emotion. And I think ChatGPT allowed me to convey these thoughts, in a really sort of pragmatic way. So it worked, which is good. So happy for that. But I'd say professionally, again, customer with a K, our CRM, They've been rolling out really impressive tech, a lot of the customer facing stuff, bots, as well as on the agent side. And I think they've shown like a real commitment to, improving these tools. So I'm excited for both of these, I guess. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think tools are going to continue to roll out over the next probably several months, if not next few years. And sounds like you found a great partner that provides a platform, right, where you can really experiment. And you mentioned, you've had a lot of luck pushing to be part of betas. So that's exciting. It's awesome to hear. Lastly, what question would you like to ask next week's guest?
Yeah. So I think all the sort of e-com leaders right now are kind of talking about their Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals and their preparation. So I'm curious, what holiday deals are you looking to take advantage of this year?
Nice. And what are you looking to take advantage of?
So I'm a like a bedroom rocker. So I like to create music at home. So I'm a recovering musician. So I'm probably going to buy some music gear. That's probably going to be my impulse purchase this year.
Exciting stuff. You got to share your Spotify feed sometime.
Okay.
All right, TJ, I know it's Q4 is super busy. Thank you again for joining us. And thanks to everyone else who tuned in to spend some time with us today. If you have any customer support questions, especially about scaling and cross-functional initiatives, please reach out to us or TJ. And do come join us for another retail edition of Plain Speak on Wednesday, November 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern, where we will step into style and bridge fashion and customer experience tech in a chat with Spencer Woodard, the Director of Customer Experience at Nisolo Shoes. Folks, thank you all so much.